In today's video, we're going to be recreating this poster that I came across recently. I was also if I could make a video about animated posters, so I'm going to do this quick one just because it looks super fun, and I think it's a good way of practicing thinking about how you can layer effects to get unique results. I'm going to start off with 1000 by 1250 composition at 24 frames per second, just to get a bit of that vertical look that a poster, or at least a poster on the internet, usually has. I'm going to start off by creating a new solid, so Command Y, and I'm going to name this background. I'm going to want a slightly off-white color with a bit of an orange tint. Now we have our background here. I'm going to create another solid, and I'm going to name this Balloon 1. And let's make this balloon a bluish color. Once we've made this solid, I'm going to pre-comp it, make sure to move all attributes into new composition. Going to name it Balloon 1. So now we can go into our pre-comp with our background, and I'm going to add a letter because we want these balloons to have letters like in the example. And I'm just going to click in the middle, and let's do S to start off with. Scale it up a good bit. Do a classic Helvetica. Make sure the S is centered, or whatever letter you want to do. And then you can go back into your main composition. And now we have this. First thing we're going to add is a CC sphere. So I'm just going to add that using FX Console. We want to open up these properties, and I want to set the ambient to 100 and light intensity to 0. So now we get this flat look. Now, as you can see, our balloon, or our letter, is stretched because we have a composition that is more vertical than it is horizontal. We want to stretch our balloon to get the right shape of the letter without compromising on the balloon shape. So if we stretch it down a little bit, you can just scale it however you want. You can use whatever parameters just until you get a look that's pretty good. And you want to keep in mind the shape of a balloon. You want it to be a bit more oval than you want it to be round. You can even go in here if you wanted to. If you hit scale on this, and then if you decrease the width on it to kind of counteract some of that to get a bit more of a pleasing look for the letter. Well, now that we had that, our S looks pretty good. We can go in and add the string for the balloon. I'm going to start by dragging this up a little bit, and I'm going to add a text layer just because, you know, we want to keep it a little bit fun. You can scale this text down and change the color to a bit of a darker color, and then rotate it to -90 degrees. Position it however you want. So now we got that kind of look. I might just adjust my balloon just a smidge. There we go. Make sure that's centered and move that up just a little bit. On our text, I'm going to add an effect. We're going to add wave warp. That's just going to give us, you know, a bit of a cool look. We're going to start by changing direction to 0 and the wave speed to, let's say, 0.2 just to keep it pretty slow. And the wave width, we can extend that a good bit. And the wave height, let's put that to 2. And that's just going to give us a slight bit of movement. And you can always play with these parameters if you want. I like setting the pinning to the right edge, and you can change the speed if you want to go faster. And you can also change the width if you want it to be a bit more of a longer looking trail. But I'll set the speed to 0.3, the wave width to 126, and the wave height to 4 in this case. Next thing that we're going to do is collapse these two, and I'm going to create a null. And in this case, I'm just using the plugin called Void. It's free, you can use it. It's just an easy way of using nulls basically. And I'm just going to name this Balloon 1 controller. So now if we open the position for this, if we move it, it goes at the same time, so we only have to animate one thing for the position of them. I'm going to select the two properties here because I want to unseparate them, and then I'm just going to keyframe the position and go all the way down, keep it over here on the left hand side 2 seconds, and move the balloon up and out the way. And if we play that back, we have a balloon going through it that is way too fast, so I'm just going to extend that. Let's see what 5 seconds looks like. Maybe even that's a bit too fast. Maybe 6 seconds is a little bit better. We can even do the 410. And that's just going to keep the look pretty smooth and steady. It's important to also keep in mind that you want to be able to read what this says, so don't go too overboard with it. We have this very linear animation, and if you want to add a little bit more spice to it, we can add a couple of keyframes in here, just moving it out to the left a little bit, and then moving it to the right a little bit. And then you can always select all your keyframes, right click on them, and then go to keyframe interpolation, and you can do a continuous Bezier. And now if we play that back, we have something that looks like this. So it's just going to keep it pretty simple and just give it a little bit of sway like the balloon is actually floating in the air. That is pretty much it for the first balloon. So I'm going to select all of this, and let's just change the color. We want more balloons. We want a balloon to match each letter of what we want to spell out. So in this case, we're going for subscribe. We need a couple more balloons. So you can go into your project here and duplicate the balloon. So it's going to rename it to Balloon 2. And then you can go in, change the letter to, in this case, U. Make sure that it is centered up, and then you can click on your background, Shift Command Y, and you can change the color. So in this case, maybe let's go with like maybe an orange like that to match the color. If we go back into our composition here, we can drag balloon 2 in. If we go to balloon 1 pre-comp, copy that, paste it, duplicate this text, put it here, remove the link to the controller, and you can center that up. And if we look at the scale of balloon 1, you can see that it's 70 and 80. So what you can do is if you open the scale of this and just pick whip it to the scale of that, it'll have the same scale. And then readjust your text, and it'll already have the effect applied, so it already has the wave warp. And now we can animate the second balloon. Again, if we just select it, void, and then we can hit P. And again, I'm gonna unseparate these dimensions. And let's keyframe the position, move it down and a little bit further down than the other one. Actually, maybe even a little bit above, a little bit to the left, and then move up and drag it all the way up. And again, if we have a look at that, you can see it kind of comes in like that. So maybe what I want to do here is just drag it down a little bit here and a little bit to the right so we can see the S still. Move it just a little bit down. Select the lock keyframes and right click, keyframe interpolation, and continuous Bezier. Okay, and play back. We have this very smooth animation with the 2 letters flying up. So we're starting to get the word started. That's essentially what you want to do all throughout. So we're just going to do that, and then I'll get right back to you once I have all the letters, because it's just the same process over and over and over again. Now that I have all the balloons set up, as you can see here, we've got the main composition down. This is more or less it. Now it's just time to add a little bit of details to it and see how we can spice it up. So one thing that they do have in the poster is adding shadows. I only want the shadows to be displayed on the balloon. So what I'm thinking is to start out by pre-comping everything and naming it balloons, and then I'm gonna go in and make a duplicate. So in this duplicate, I'm gonna drag it in here, open it up, and hit Command K to bring up the composition settings, and then I'm gonna rename it to balloons shadow. My thought here is to take out all the text. Essentially what I want to do is add a drop shadow. So let's take balloon 6 so we can kind of see what we're doing. Maybe change the direction that way, increase the softness, increase the distance a little bit, decrease the opacity. And if we take that and we put it on every single balloon like that. So now we have these balloons here with the shadows, and you can see this is kind of the shadow. I don't want any of that spill that goes on right there. If we then have our balloon shadows and we use our balloons as a track matte, re-show that. There we have it. We have some shadows. You can see the balloons interacting, and you can of course go in and change the direction of the shadows, whatever you want. You can even, if you want to duplicate, let's say right here, drag this first instance up here, and if you play that, you know, it just gives it a little bit more of a lead into it. And then you of course want to match it on the other end too, so that it starts, you know, and loops the right way. Makes it a little bit more visually interesting, and make sure that you don't have any weird overlaps with no time. Right here looks a bit funky, but it does loop. So you just want to play around with the timing of everything if you make it yourself, and, you know, take your own take on it. But this is a good way of practicing how to use effects to get different results, like taking the CC sphere and applying it to create a balloon, and then text layer, adding some wave warp to get the look of the string. So it's just about being creative, and I think that's a really good exercise when you are practicing and learning After Effects. It's just teaching yourself to be creative and using effects in unorthodox ways to get the looks that you want. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week's video, and I just want to say thank you so much, and I'll see you again next week.